It was August bank holiday weekend, and extra passenger trains had been scheduled. People flocked to the coast on Duck's branch line. This meant there were a lot of trains arriving into Knapford to catch the connections to the Little Western. In turn, Nigel was very busy shunting and arranging trains. The work seemed to be endless. "Oh, I hate to say this, but I'm struggling here," he panted. "It's just relentless. There's enough work to do here for 3 engines, let alone 1. "We must keep going. The passengers are relying on us, and so too is the Fat Controller," replied the driver. "Oh well, alright then. I'm made of harder stuff than this. Come on, let's get Henry's train ready then." Nigel puffed away. But it wasn't just Nigel that was feeling the strain. The others were struggling too. Gordon had been performing superbly with the express all morning, but his efforts were weakening, and it didn't help that he had an enormous 12-coach train to tackle. He began to feel a slight burning sensation. "Something's not right. I need to stop," he moaned. But Gordon couldn't stop until he reached the next station. He was diverted onto the slow line and crawled along as the other engines overtook him. At last he arrived into a station, and the driver and fireman checked him over. "He's run a hot box," diagnosed the driver. "He can't pull the train anymore." Gordon limped onto a siding, waiting to be escorted to the works. Whilst Henry took over the train and completed the express's journey. News reached the Fat Controller. "Oh dear," he sighed, disgruntled. "I've lost Gordon's valuable strength when I need it most. What else can go wrong today?" "I wouldn't have said that out loud," whispered Duck knowingly to Oliver. Bear, the high mech, was drafted in to take over the express. Nigel was very surprised to see Bear waiting for the coaches. "Where's Gordon?" he asked. "He's been taken ill, so I'm his replacement," explained Bear. "You've replaced Gordon? I thought that sort of thing wasn't going to happen here," cried Nigel. "Oh my Gresley, it's the end of steam all over again." No, I'm not replacing Gordon himself, just until he gets better." "You serious? Because last time I was in the company of a diesel, he more or less said the writing was on the wall, and I can't go through all that again." "Well, on behalf of all diesels, I apologise for that engine's abrupt rudeness. But the island of Sodo is also home to many diesel engines too. We work side by side with our steamy companions," smiled Bear. "So you're not here to replace us then?" "I wouldn't dream of it, and neither would the Fat Controller." Nigel smiled with relief. "Oh, thank Gresley." "You haven't met many diesels, have you?" asked Bear. "Not many, if I'm honest. In fact, you're the first I've ever had a civilised conversation with, if you catch me drift." Bear fully understood. "Well, let's be friends, and I'm sure you'll look at diesels in a whole different light. I'm Bear." "I'm Nigel, and I'm starting to think being named after an animal is a bit of a tradition round here." Bear laughed and prepared to depart with the express. The next day, it was Bank Holiday Monday, and the big station was busier than ever. Nigel didn't have the time to talk to Bear much, but he always whistled happily when he saw him, and Bear would hoot his horn back. Nigel was impressed. This was the first diesel engine he'd met who knew how to speak properly to a steam engine. That afternoon, people began to make their way home again from Duck's branch line. The platform was bursting with passengers waiting to travel home on the express. Nigel slowly and steadily drew the long, heavy train out of the carriage sidings and towards the station. But as the station came into sight, Nigel felt the train becoming heavier. "That's strange," he thought. "We're slowing right down. Something's wrong." Nigel was right. The driver opened the regulator further, but it did little to improve the pace. Nigel entered the big station puffing hard, when suddenly he slipped violently. Clouds of steam rocketed into the air. His wheels spun and spun, but it was no good. He stopped under the station roof with only 4 coaches actually beside the platform. The guard walked up to the cab just as the Fat Controller arrived to see what all the commotion was about. "I'm sorry, sir," said the guard. "There must be a leak in the brake pipe on one of the coaches. It'll take some time to find which one it is." "What, there's 12 coaches?" cried the fireman. "Then there's no time to lose," boomed the Fat Controller. "Find the defect and remove it from the train. The express will have to depart with 11 coaches instead." "Right away, sir," said the driver. The passengers waited impatiently as the driver, fireman and guard checked each and every coach for the leak. Nigel was simmering quietly. He was secretly pleased to have a rest, but he wouldn't be for long. As he stood idle under the station roof, smoke began to rise from his chimney and collect under the canopy. Soon, a thick black cloud had begun to form. Trapped, it wafted down onto the platform and began to choke the passengers. They coughed and spluttered. The smoke only grew worse. With no ventilation, the entire station was consumed by smoke. All the passengers charged out of the station to breathe, including the Fat Controller. "Someone help!" spluttered Nigel. James was stopped outside of the station and watched from a distance as the entire station was smoked out. He didn't bother to help. I can't breathe," choked Nigel. Out of the smoke appeared Bear. He was quickly coupled up and with a great heave forcefully dragged Nigel and the screeching coaches out from under the station roof and into the fresh air. Nigel was gasping for air. Within minutes, the consumed station reappeared and the smoke gradually drifted out from under the canopy. The Fat Controller apologized to the passengers. Then he spoke to Nigel. "Running a railway with steam locomotives has its inevitabilities, and this incident was entirely out of your hands. It wasn't your fault, but it is a mishap we can certainly try to prevent in the future," said the Fat Controller kindly. "Yes, sir," murmured Nigel quietly. Bear grinned. "Cheer up. Accidents like that happen all the time. On my first day here, a similar sort of incident happened to me with my coaches." "Yeah, but I bet you didn't nearly choke everyone to death." "Well, no, you're right. But what did happen? I was rescued by a friend who I could depend on, and in a way, that's what's happened to you." Nigel smiled humbly. "Thank you for rescuing me." "That's what friends are for," Bear said simply. Nigel and Bear are firm friends. He now looks at diesel locomotives in a completely different light thanks to Bear. Nigel looks up to him and even considers him to be the best of all the big engines. If we passed over our duties to diesels like Bear, then we left British Railways in good hands. That, from the likes of Nigel the J50, is incredibly high praise indeed.